Hello, and welcome to this podcast video for peer mentors. My name is Julianne, and I'm a junior art therapy major, also getting a certificate in creative entrepreneurship.
Hi, I'm Brittany. I'm also a junior and I'm getting my Spanish and Education master's degree at Temple.
Sweet. Um, right off the bat, we're just going to talk a little bit about what being a peer mentor is and what students can get out of meeting with us. So, peer mentors were once undeclared students at Temple. So, we all have this really deep interest in helping students who are currently undeclared so we can help them find the best fit for their major.
Absolutely. Every peer mentor gets a set number of students in the beginning of a new school year. And throughout the entire year, both semesters, we reach out to those students. We have meetings with those students, and we pretty much just talk about what being a peer mentor is, and how we can help them, and how our experience can help them kind of choose a path that's right for them, taking more exploratory courses and giving them more information about things that they really don't know about or that they don't really feel comfortable talking to other adults, but they can talk to like your peers about.
Yeah, exactly. So we really are just here as resources for students because we've been through the same situation previously. So we just want to share our knowledge of what we've learned along the way as being undeclared students and help new students figure out what fits for them. So for our major exploration stories, everybody has, different stories completely. For me, I came in completely undeclared. I knew that I wanted to do something in a creative field, but I didn't really know what. So I explored a lot of intro courses, a lot of them. And it wasn't until I took my intro to art therapy course that I really felt a connection with the material. Um, I always had an interest in art. I was involved with that in high school, and I loved psychology. So I was like, hey, this major like literally combines two passions of mine. Um, so I stayed in touch with my professor, and she guided me a lot and mentored me. And I finally decided to declare in art therapy. And I also added that creative entrepreneurship certificate because I always had an interest in learning how to manage a business within a creative field as well. So that's a little bit about my story.
My major exploration is obviously different than Julianne's, because everyone's is different. Mine started out pretty much the same. I was absolutely undeclared, had no idea what I wanted to do. I had some experience with like education and teaching, but like I didn't want to get stuck in a major that I didn't like. So I took a lot of exploratory courses, one of those being Spanish. I'd taken it in high school and I really enjoyed it, and I knew I wanted to minor in it. But then I took some exploratory courses in other subjects, and education was the only one that kind of spoke to me and like connected with me. And so then I chose Spanish and education to be my kind of focus. Um, and then now, as a junior, I decided to continue on the path at Temple in a 4+1 program, a master's program with Spanish and education. So now, instead of being a College of Education student, I am a College of Liberal Arts student because my bachelor's degree will be in Spanish and my master's degree will be in education. And I have also decided to add like a little minor onto that, a Latin American Studies minor, just because I think it's really interesting. So like this is just to show that like even as a junior, like you can change your major, like you can do like other things, like you can add stuff on. Um, and like it really isn't an issue. Like your major exploration is your story, and it doesn't have to like be a cookie cutter like everybody else's. You can definitely change things, move things around, and it always ends up as a really fun story, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's a good point when you were talking about how, as a junior, you realize that you wanted to go to grad
Yeah,
school, stuff like that. Like, I think that's a good point because things, always change. Like people's interests change. And I think that's just like a good thing to remember because it was similar for me. Like once I found that I liked art therapy, I was like, okay, I want to keep learning more things. Like what else can I add on? And I had an interest in business as well. So I was like, I'll just add on this certificate. And I was intimidated to go into Fox and stuff like that as like an art major. Everybody wears their suits and stuff like that. But I was like, no, I'm gonna do it. I want to learn. Like this is gonna be a challenge. So I just want to say I think that was a good point. Like it's always going to change and you can always like continue your education
absolutely.
with whatever you're interested
We're
in.
like, we're evolving, you know what I mean? We're learning more about ourselves,
Yes.
about our education. And I think
Yeah.
limiting yourself to just like, oh, like I just want to do this one thing like forever, which is totally okay. I think that sometimes broadening your eyes and like your horizon
Yeah.
definitely is a new outlook and sometimes brings really good things.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's great. I totally agree. Um when it comes to majors and careers that are related to majors and things like that, for art therapy, you do have to go to grad school as well if you want to get your counseling credentials. So that's one thing to know if students are interested in art therapy in any way. But any like community arts related fields, teaching artists, like I've met a couple teaching artists through organizations in Philly. Any type of like gallery or museum, schools, you can work in clinical settings in hospitals and other things like that, inpatient and outpatient. But really, I think, with getting a bachelor's in art therapy, most creative fields that you need a fine arts background for, I think, would be open to you. And like entrepreneurship and creative businesses and stuff like that. Um, I know for me personally, I don't really know exactly what I want to do when I graduate college. Um, like it's always been in the back of my mind that I wanted to be an art therapist, but as I get closer to that, I'm more so interested in the material that I'm learning when it comes to like healing and art and things like that and how I can take that into my life. But I don't want to, I've I've gotten to the point where I'm like I don't have to be an art therapist with this degree. Like there's so many options and I think that's a good thing to remember too when it comes to just majors and degrees in general. Like you don't have to end up in like a field that you majored in necessarily. Like there are so many options. Um,
Really.
it took me a while to realize that definitely as like an underclassman, but
I agree. I had like that same kind of issue that like
yeah,
there are so many options. Um like for example, like for me, like for education, a lot of lawyers actually get their bachelor's degree in like education and stuff. Like that's actually like the like most majored in like, and then they go to law school because like they finish like their education degree and then they're like, oh, actually, I think I want to be a lawyer, and then they can turn like they can use that what they learned in education like as a lawyer. And I
yeah,
think that that's kind of interesting too, is that like you can use like your degree for things other than like what it's meant for. Like for Spanish, for example, like you can be an interpreter. Like in CLA, like there's a lot of other languages, like Portuguese, there's ancient Greek, there's um, Italian, there's like a
well,
plethora of languages. So like you can, and like a lot of them kind of like line up. So like you can like take them congruently. But definitely like you can have like a lot of jobs like as a Spanish major, for example. Like you can obviously like an interpreter, you can do like international business, like you can do like you can add a minor like of any language onto
yeah,
your major, which is like a really good thing nowadays because like being bilingual or like multilingual is like a really big commodity in
yeah,
today's times because like everyone's being more inclusive. And I think that that's like a really good thing to point out, is that like even if like you don't think that you can use that major, you can. There's that website, what can I do with this major.com, that you can literally type in your bachelor's degree and it'll come up with a bunch of jobs like that you can use with that. So I think that like I think that you can use a major for so many different things, and I feel like that's not talked about enough.
Yeah, I agree. And like, what was I gonna say? When it comes to that website, I know I definitely I definitely looked at that a lot as a freshman and a sophomore. Um, and that's something that we talk about like with our mentees and stuff in meetings. Like we talk about those sort of resources. We talk about the bulletin and things like that, which students may or may not have like looked at this point. But the bulletin, I would also recommend just going off of that, like looking at the bulletin and just going through the colleges and the majors and just looking at what's available. And I know at the beginning of the semester, for me, I would tell my mentees to print out that list of all the schools and the majors if they could, and like cross out colleges they knew they had no interest in, and it just helps to visually see and narrow that down to kind of like understand more what your interests are and what you think you might want to do. So that was a little tangent about one of the temple resources, but yeah, going off of what you were saying, I, as a junior, I don't really know what I want to do after graduation yet, and I think that's fine. Like I've talked to people before who majored in things like economics and now they want to be like a child psychologist and stuff like that. So it really is just the possibilities are endless, and that it can get overwhelming because there are so many possibilities, but it's also like comforting to know that you really can do whatever you want in college and after college.
I absolutely agree. I feel like it's never too late. Like I feel like it's never too late to change. Like if you like feel like it's just, if your major just isn't sitting right with you, like maybe it's time to reevaluate and kind of be like, okay, why am I feeling this way? Like
Yeah.
what can I do? Like is there anything else that like I can do like to get myself to love my major? Because like you know what I mean? Like nobody wants to hate their job.
That's a good point. It's like, are you making yourself like what you're doing, or are you actually enjoying it? God,
Yeah.
that's really wise. That was really wise.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Um, what I like about my major is it allows me to learn about fine art and fine art practices and things like that and hone in on those skills, but I'm also getting a curriculum in psychology, which is another thing that I'm interested in. Um, so I have those creative outlets with school, but also academically based classes like psychology courses and learning about communication and just human connection and the human psyche, basically. And when it comes to the actual students that I'm learning with, from my experience, art therapy students are really they're a really good group of people. Um, they're just they just are really thoughtful and kind and giving. And I personally feel lucky to study with these people who share the same values as me. They have similar interests when it comes to art and mental health and using art therapy and using art as a way to heal. Um, so that's just a little bit about what I like about my major and the people who are also in my major.
I really like that, like you said that like you like get with everybody because like I think I completely agree with that. Like I
Yeah.
feel like once like you kind of get into like your major and like you're kind of comfortable. Like I know that I wasn't comfortable as like an like um and like freshman year like at all I was not comfortable like talking to like my classmates.
Yeah.
Like sophomore year I started opening up and then like now like I'm just like as soon as I get put into like a breakout room or something I'm like okay hey guys like so what are we doing like
Yeah.
this who wants to do what like you know what I mean like I feel like it's really like important to kind of like break out of that shell like especially once like you find your major because like then you get that confidence that like okay like
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing kind of like I'm on the right track like let's get it going and I
Yeah.
feel like that's like something really nice that like people don't always talk about like um one like I really love education classes because one thing about like future teachers is that everybody wants to have like everybody wants to say something. Like everybody has their own opinions. Like there's discussion in all classes. Like you know what I mean? Nobody just sits
Mhm.
there and like doesn't participate. And then like on the opposite side, like in Spanish, like you have to participate, you have to talk, you have to do things. So, like I'm like in a bunch of classes where like I like to know like my classmates. I like to work with my classmates. I like to be friends with my classmates. Like just because I think that it's easier for me to get that like kind of support in order to learn better. I feel like it broadens my understanding and like I think it helps my language learning in general.
Mm.
Yeah, I just feel like it's like really nice like when you kind of put out the positive energy in your classes and like you get that back.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And it's interesting because I've talked to other peer mentors who said when they first started in their major, they didn't feel like an immediate connection with the people in their school, and it was like hard for them. And that's okay too, like
Absolutely.
because it's not always going to be that it's not always going to be like you feel this immediate connection because everybody's story
Is
is
different.
different. Yeah. um and I know for me, I do feel connected to the students in Tyler and things like that, but I was also the same way where it took me a while to like warm up to people because I'm like that in general. But at this point, now you're kind of seeing people from classes that you had freshman year, and there's a lot of crossover at this point as you become a junior and a senior and stuff like that. So that's nice because as you go through college, your class sizes they get a lot smaller as you go because your major becomes more specific and there's more crossover with the same students, which is really nice because then you can actually form like a foundation and a friend group within your college. So it takes time, but you know, everybody gets there, and you just gotta trust the process, which sounds so cheesy, but it is just one of those things that it ends up working out in the
Absolutely.
end. But it's stressful in the beginning. Like I totally get that, but it works itself out.
Absolutely. I think that like we're a Philly school, like you know what I mean? Like trust the process is like a Philly slogan. I feel like that is like a really good thing to say. Is
Yeah.
that like you have to trust the process. Like it takes time, like you'll get there. It'll be like really stressful sometimes, but like all that stress does go away and like once you find your major like it's really just like a breath of like relief and I feel like peer mentors get that more than anybody because like especially for us we're like division of like university studies like undeclared so we've all been in your shoes like we all like understand that like kind of pressure from like friends family anybody like that that's just kind of like oh when are you going to declare when are you going to declare and you're still figuring it out and that's okay and
Yeah.
I feel like we get that a lot.
Yeah, that's a great point. We do because we've been in those same shoes. And if I think back to freshman year and how I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I felt like I was visiting my advisor like every other week with a new idea for what I wanted to, major in, you know, that whole process brought me to this moment and it was worth it. So, yeah, I think I don't have anything else to add.
Neither do I feel like that was a good conversation.
Yeah, I think it was good too. I think we're gonna leave it at that. Shout out to all the peer mentors.
Absolutely.
I recommend if you haven't met with your peer mentor yet that you do that next semester because everybody is incredible and they're here to help you. So I think that's it. Good luck and hopefully we see you next semester.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.